Hi, I'm Kathleen Blanco. I was the governor of Louisiana from 2004 to 2008, and I welcome all of you to this wonderful meeting here, this gathering here today to talk about women in public office. I think women bring great value to the tables. We need you there. We want you there, and you've got to learn how to get yourself there. So learn everything you can learn from today's gathering and prepare yourself in many, many ways over the coming months and years, and you will be successful, and you'll be making this speech to an audience very much like yourself in the future. Well, it was very unique. I was in the House, and all 5 women were in the House. The Senate had no women. We were a congenial group, and we had common interests, but we also had individual interests. We created a women's caucus, and we didn't have a room to meet in. So we asked the president of the Senate, or Mary Landrieu was in the House with me, and she asked John Alario, who was the Speaker of the House, to give us a caucus room, and he said, "Well, we just didn't have enough members. They just didn't have space in the basement for for 5 women to have a little place to meet." And so we devised a way to get them in, cajole them, and make them want to help us. We inducted 25 men into the Hall of Dames one night by feminizing their first names and telling them to come down and get a rose. And this was a little plot we created. Mary was saying, "Y'all need to go fuss at John." And I said, "Why don't we try humor?" And so we plotted over dinner on the last night for the filing of bills, where we had to stay till midnight and do absolutely very little in between the reading of the bills into the record. But we just had to be there. And after dinner, we pulled this whole little stunt off. And then we elected John Alario president of our caucus, in charge of finding us a room to meet in. Because now we had one of the largest caucuses. We had 30 members. But, you have to use a little humor. Mm-hmm. You have to be willing to laugh at yourself and engage other people. And so those were some of the things that we had to do. But there was no woman's room close to the chambers. There was a men's room. There was one men's room on the side of where the speaker is, but the women couldn't use the bathroom there, and so we would go into the public bathrooms down the hall, through the rotunda and down that hallway. They had eventually put speakers in when Diana Bajwa was the only woman. There were no speakers, and she never could figure out how the men, she'd see them running to go vote, and she never knew how they knew. But there were speakers in their bathrooms, but not in the women's bathroom. And so she figured that out and had them install speakers, at least in that distant bathroom where we were. So we could follow the action and know where we needed to be on any given moment. So it's things as rude and crude as bathroom needs to just, generically, sometimes women were made fun of, or, especially if they ever teared up. We had a package of bills that would affect families, women and children particularly. And I started noting that when we were the authors, a lot of times we'd lose those bills. So what we started doing was actually incorporating men, some of the men, who were sympathizers and interested in those issues, those family issues. Families are children. They're men and women and children, boys and girls. So we started having authors. We took no pride in authorship. We found men who sympathized with us and sent them up to do our work. They could pass those bills like that. And, and our work was done. And at the end of the day, we passed practically every piece of legislation that was interesting to us. That was my favorite part of my inauguration, was to see all of this excitement in these children. There were boys there too, but more people brought their girls. And these little girls were just on tippy-toe excitement. They just danced in their, right by their chairs and everywhere where they were. They were so pleased with themselves. And those little girls are now young women. And some of them are definitely moving in political arenas. And I expect to see them become strong women leaders over time. And I'm very proud that I could open that door for them to envision themselves. And I've had so many of their parents come up to me and say, my daughter was at your inauguration and she said she wanted to be the next woman governor, or she wanted to be a woman governor also. And I said, and she just might. She just might be. Encourage her. Up until that time, I never considered my gender as problematic. The people of Louisiana embraced me and supported me and loved my ideas and loved my work. I guess what happened is that I knew that we had to accomplish certain basic things for a recovery. And mainly I needed federal dollars. So I didn't join in the criticisms of President Bush or anybody else at the federal level because, you bite the hand that potentially feeds you and you're not going to get much food. I just continued working, keeping my focus, understanding what had to happen. I got sorely criticized for announcing that we were going to redo the Superdome. I think it was about October. It was about 6 weeks or so after the storm when we made that announcement. Well, all kinds of people in the legislature and in the communities at large screamed that I had terrible priorities. But I understood that we had to do these big things, and if we were going to accomplish them, they had to start early, or else we were going to lose things of great value. And so this was a very important thing to be doing, and they criticized me the entire time that we were working to put it back together until the day we reopened with the first Saints football game against the Falcons. And that city was so excited. It was teeming with excitement and accolades. And I walked down Bourbon Street to everyone cheering me on and thanking me loudly. And then with media apologies going on and on and on for months after, saying they were wrong, I was right. I had to tell my people at one time or another to stop fighting the noise, the negative noise. Let it be. I said, it's taking too much energy from our effort. We have to rebuild. They don't. They're sitting on the sidelines going, shame on you, shame on you. And I said, they're wrong, and we are right. We know what we have to do. Quit fighting it. Let's use our energy to do our work. They got very upset, and they said, well, they're destroying you politically. And I said, it doesn't matter. History will write itself. History will tell the real story. I don't really care what happens to me in the immediate moments or even in the aftermath of my term. I said, I need your work. I need your energy, and I need us to do this right. And I knew that my priorities were right. They were tough priorities, hard sometimes to actually see through. But I ended up raising all the money I needed from Washington to last beyond my term into the next term to finish up the job. And it's because of that that we actually have a recovery today, that my people were able to just listen to me even though they didn't want to. They wanted to engage and to defend me. And I said, I'm not going to defend myself, and you're not either. Quit. Let's quit. And I said, they're telling lies. We understand that. They're exaggerating all kinds of things, but let them go. Eventually they'll stop. Well, surround yourself with people who understand how a campaign works, and run. You can't get elected if you don't run. sometimes you're going to have a false beginning, and your first attempt may not succeed, but you're going to learn a lot about the dynamics of campaigning. Now, the first thing that you're probably going to have to struggle with is raising money for yourself. Learn how to do that, and you can make it happen. It was very difficult for me to teach myself how to do that, but I've finally mastered it over the years, and I always raised money with a soft touch. Didn't threaten anybody, didn't coerce anybody, while the men were just, banging on their doors saying, you must give me the maximum amounts. But anyway, I always had enough to do everything I needed to do, in spite of the fact that it was done with a soft touch. I think one of the things they need to do before they ever run for office is to understand exactly what the office they're running or wish to run for is all about. They need to learn the issues. They need to pay attention to how that school board or that legislative body is operating. What are the topics? What are they dealing with? Read about them every day. Go to some of the meetings that if they possibly can. Understand the issues well and come up with sound ideas to deal with some of these issues. Common sense is a real value in public office. And if you maintain common sense, then you can overcome radical thoughts that don't make common sense. And there will be people who are always trying to come up with crazy things to deal with any kind of issue or a little problem that might crop up. But if you can educate yourself really well on the area that you're interested in, I think it serves you well when you stand in debates with others, when you speak to the questions that might come in a forum. And I think people will respect you for having the knowledge that you need. And it will reposition you against many, many individuals. There are men who have no idea what the office requires of them. They just want to be. And if you as a woman just want to be, you're not going to gain the respect you need, just as the men who just want to be don't gain the respect that they need to win. So I think it's important to educate yourself on all topics that come before the entity that you wish to serve in. Then also learn the dynamics of campaigning itself. It's unique. Help in other people's campaigns if you possibly can. Give yourself enough lead time to have these experiences, and be as involved as you can in other campaigns. Maybe as an advisor or just an actual envelope stuffer, or person making telephone calls for those candidates. It's really important to understand internal dynamics and fundraising in campaigns. And then just have a good team. Have some smart people around you. It's a lot of fun. You can do a lot of good brainstorming, come up with great ideas. I do now have a deeper appreciation for being among one of the first women to even become a governor in the United States of America. That was a unique gift that I was given. It was part of my destiny that I didn't fully appreciate or understand, but I just knew that I wanted to do the right things for Louisiana. I had priorities that I knew were based in solid thought and would definitely work. So my contributions have been recognized more and more over time as the results of what we've done have played out so strongly and so well for the people of Louisiana. And I'm deeply grateful for that. Women are great campaigners. They're great organizers. They know how to use time very, very well, because we've always had to multitask all of our lives to keep home, hearth, children, whatever's in our lives, we have to keep family together. and get a lot accomplished in the meantime. So all of those gifts come to bear when we decide to organize a campaign or something like that. And so just find those good, energized women. They're very great, exciting to work with women. And I think that women can really help to make a campaign run. But don't forget, there are some talented men out there too. And I think you always need a balance in everything you do. So don't exclude the good, talented men who want to help and who can bring some great value to the table. Learn everything you can about campaigning, learn everything about the office that you want to attain, and go for it.